Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of R&R's Ask the Expert. I'm, of course, your host, Valerie King, R&R's editor-in-chief, and I'm joined today by Doug Quinn, who's Executive Director of the American Policyholder Association. Now, the American Policyholder Association is a nonprofit 501c4 watchdog organization that promotes integrity, honesty, and best practices in the property loss adjustment sector of the insurance industry. The APA promotes best practices with licensing agencies and governing bodies and monitors, identifies, and reports on insurance fraud against property owners. They also advocate broadly for policyholder benefits and promote solutions in insurance coverage, as well as the insurance claim process and the repair and rebuilding process for the policyholders that exist across the United States. We invited Doug on to learn more about the APA. Also, of course, its relevance to the restoration industry and what is ahead for the organization. Thank you so much for joining me, Doug.
Thank you for having me, Valerie.
Happy to have you here. First question, could you talk about, of course, the American Policyholder Association, maybe starting with its history and its mission? And I noticed you have a 4-part strategy, so if you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Okay. The history of the American Policyholder Association is we all sort of met during Superstorm Sandy. What we find is there are different levels of insurance company disputes. Sometimes it's just a simple disagreement. Sometimes it is actually the carrier committing bad faith. And sometimes there's outright criminal fraud perpetrated by some of the lower level employees or the vendors hired by the insurance industry. What we're looking to do is just make sure that policyholders get a fair claim. We don't want insurance companies to pay out $1 less than what they owe, and certainly not $1 more than what they owe. What happened during Superstorm Sandy is the carriers had hired some engineering firms to help adjust claims. Some of those engineering firms were suffering from what's called carrier bias. They want bias toward the check writer. They want to make the person writing the check happy, so they write a report that they think would be favorable to their employer. In this case, they were actually forging reports to say that damage was either pre-existing or what was called earth movement exclusion, which is not covered in flood insurance. And we were able to catch them doing that. We all sort of knew that, something was wrong. We were watching people whose homes were completely wiped out, myself included, who were getting dramatically underpaid. And we were actually able to find some of these reports where the engineer on the ground said, yes, this is storm damage. We'd send it back to his firm or her firm, and then they would do this process called peer review and make changes to report. In some cases, just as simple as adding the word not. This is not storm damage. So we were able to catch them doing that. We returned the evidence over to the New York Attorney General, who raided a firm and walked one of their executives out in handcuffs. And that one arrest, that one criminal arrest, bearing in mind about 2,000 people had sued, did nothing because the carriers know that 1% to 2% of people sue. The other 98% of the time they can get away with it. So nobody cared about the civil suits, but the one criminal arrest broke it all open. We were able to get 144,000 claims reopened, something like $350 million of extra money paid out to policyholders who had been cheated. And we formed the APA 3 years ago on that basis that, we're not necessarily going to look to sue people anymore. All that does is make attorneys wealthy. What we're looking to do is for people who commit crime, us as people in the, as consumers or those of you in the restoration industry, if you commit criminal fraud against an insurance company, they're not going to sue you. They're going to arrest you. They're going to investigate and arrest you. Unfortunately, no one's looking at the insurance side for some of the vendors, the adjusters, the engineers that they hire, some of the employees involved in the claims department. So we're looking to do the same thing. We're also going after licensed professionals such as engineers or licensed adjusters and holding them accountable to their licensing board. Main goal is just to make sure that somebody has paid premiums for years or even decades. When there's a time for a claim, they are treated fairly and honestly, and they're not cheated out of an honest claim. That's all. We just, We believe in insurance. Insurance is a very important tool for the average American, but we just want to make sure that it works the way that it's supposed to.
Very helpful description and background and history of how the APA came to be. Could you illuminate and highlight that four-pronged strategy I saw on your website?
So the APA four-point strategy, and we call it the rifle shot. We're very narrowly focused. And the four-point strategy is to what's called a proactive lobby is the first part of the strategy. The second part is we investigate and gather information on fraud. The third part is we turn it over to prosecutors to have it prosecuted. And the final fourth part is we publicize it, which is what the insurance industry does. You'll see all kinds of, if you Google insurance fraud arrest, you'll see many people, consumers, contractors, professional criminals, some of whom do deserve to be in handcuffs, but you'll see them in their orange jumpsuits. And the insurance industry has a very strong policy of publicizing. Interestingly enough, you'll see almost nobody from the insurance industry in handcuffs, unless it's somebody who got caught stealing from the insurance industry itself, such as an agent who keeps premium money. So the main point of the strategy, the first point is a proactive lobby. We work with attorneys general and prosecutors. The attorney general is the top law enforcement official in every state, so we work very closely with them. And I don't know if lobby is the correct term. It is really just getting them to do what they were hired or elected to do, which is to defend their constituents from crime. So we'll meet with them. We'll explain to them that, fraud happens on all sides. You can't just point your finger at contractors or, at consumers, a certain segment of the market, and say they're committing all the fraud. Fraud occurs on all sides. It all needs to be enforced. And I can tell from many people that I'm the first person they've ever heard from that fraud happens on the carrier side. We actually had to coin the term carrier side fraud, believe it or not. It didn't exist. There are many states where the law defined insurance fraud only as fraud being perpetrated against an insurance company, not the other way around. So it really is a very unlevel playing field. And again, we know to watch body language and we know to watch eye contact and people's demeanor when I say to them, the carrier side is committing fraud as well. And not all of them, obviously, but there's a percentage and they need to be eliminated from the market. And I can tell that they've never heard from anybody but insurance company lobbyists their whole careers. We're the first people breaking that news. So it's important because when you can't just walk into a prosecutor and say, hey, you never met me before. You've never heard of my organization, but here's a criminal case that I want you to go against one of the most powerful industries in America. Oh, and good luck getting elected next year when they fund your opponent because, you ticked them off. Prosecutors will do the right thing. They are public servants. There's not a single one of them that can't go out and make 5 times if they hung out a private shingle versus being a public servant. So they will do the right thing. They just need to be educated and they need to know that you're for real. You don't have an agenda. You're really looking out to defend consumers and their constituents. So we have to have a relationship with these professionals or these public servants in advance so that when a case does come up, we're not starting from scratch. They already know who we are. So that's why the first point is really important. We spent our first 2 years running around the country, meeting prosecutors, meeting elected officials, working with attorneys general. I've met probably close to 40 of the 50 attorneys general in the United States so far. We've got almost every state covered. Just introducing, letting them know who we are, what we do. And by the way, if one of our members turns over a criminal complaint, will you investigate it? We're not asking you to prosecute. We just want to know that, our consumers will get a fair shake, policyholders will get treated fairly, and you'll at least take a look at it. And overwhelmingly, the answer is yes.
Thanks, Doug. Very colorful description. How does membership work with the APA? And also beyond who your members are, which I'd love to learn more about, who else would you consider key stakeholders?
So membership for consumers is free. For nonprofits is free. For regulatory and law enforcement bodies, membership is free. For homeowners associations, membership is free. We do not accept government grants. We do not take money from the insurance industry. We are funded 100% by professionals whose interest is aligned with consumers, people who see this go on all the time. So many of our members who pay dues and fund our mission are restoration contractors, or public adjusters, or attorneys, some engineers. They are people that are aligned. A lot of people don't understand that as much as we see the TV commercials that say you're in good hands and, Nationwide is on your side and we're a good neighbor, at the time of claim, the insurance company's interest and the policyholder's interest are adverse. They are against each other. If the insurance company pays you an extra dollar, they lose an extra dollar. So at that time, whose interests are aligned with the policyholder is the restoration contractor, the public adjusters, the plaintiff's attorneys, some of the engineers who work on their side. These are the people that every day go in the field and we'll see policyholders getting taken advantage of. And you're talking about people that just don't have a voice of their own. So we're here to give them a voice. We're here to stand up for them. And that's really the main goal. So we have professionals who will, they'll be like, what, I make a very good living in this industry. I want to give back to people who are suffering. I want to be able to give a little bit of back. And APA is just one of the ways that you can give back. And we're the only organization in American history who does what we do. And we're sort of building it from scratch. And we have a lot of highly, highly successful, educated, motivated stakeholders who want to see and implement for change, something that's going to change the amount of people that are getting taken advantage of when it comes to an insurance claim.
Thanks, Doug. I'm curious that relationship you have with policyholders who are members, or I guess maybe who aren't members. How does that work? So if I'm an everyday consumer, a homeowner, property owner, and I want to leverage the APA as a resource, how does that journey begin? Is it, say I do feel like I've been taken advantage of by the insurance side. Now what? How does that all shake out?
So listen, a lot of people will hire a professional, a public adjuster or an attorney. And there's a lot of states where the contractors are not allowed to advocate for them because of a law called UPPA. In some cases where the contractor can at least steer them and give them some advice, that's great. But when it be, and that's in a civil case, but when it comes to actual criminal fraud, or if a licensed professional hired by the carrier, such as an engineer, has actually violated the ethics of their licensing agreement, then you would come to the APA. And we actually have a report fraud on our website, which is apassociation.org, Alpha Papa Association.org. There is a whole list of resources. And one of those resources is to be able to file a complaint with your insurance department, to be able to file a criminal complaint that goes to our investigators to be looked into. Also be able to file a complaint with an engineering licensing board. And so we'll have that ability. So if somebody comes in and they say, this looks like actual criminal fraud. And I will tell you, a large percentage of what we see is not criminal fraud. It may be a civil tort. There are some people who are just upset that, hey, this company underpaid me by $10, let's have them arrested. That's not necessarily what we're here to do. In those cases, those are civil cases. You'd want to have them resolve. You want to negotiate directly with the company. You want to have a professional advocate work for you to do that as well. But when it becomes the case where they break the law or they violate the ethics or the honesty required by their licensing, that's where the APA comes in. So they would just upload all of their complaint. They would upload supporting documents, reports, et cetera, directly onto the APA website. And it will either go to the licensing board for that professional, or it will go directly to our SIU, our Special Investigation Unit, and our investigators will investigate it and look at it and vet it to see if they violated your state law. Now, even if it's not that scenario, there's a lot of resources on the APA website. There's a lot of information on there. We have produced quite a bit of literature that people can look how to protect yourself against fraud in a disaster zone, how to self-advocate in an insurance dispute. There's tips and tactics to be able to advocate for yourself and negotiate for a better claim, an honest claim. So we have a lot of those resources that are on the website. So it's a free membership for consumers. And we deliver a pretty good product considering they pay nothing.
I learned a lot there. Good to know you're there for consumers when they truly have a problem at hand, but also proactive resources to help them hopefully advocate for themselves in advance. Okay. So, of course, our audience is made up of restoration and remediation contractors, and they show up when an insurance claim has been made to help bring a property back to pre-loss condition. I'm curious how you would put into words how is the APA relevant to those contractors?
Well, again, these are contractors that are aligned with the interest of consumers. If you are doing insurance work and obviously you expect to be paid for your services. Obviously, the consumers who have paid insurance premiums for years or even decades expect that the insurance company is going to help put their property to pre-loss condition. And in scenarios, and PS, in the restoration industry, we see people who, some cases, have very good relationships. They do very well with insurance. It's not a problem for them at all. And that's great. Anytime a consumer, again, we believe in insurance. It's very important. We just want people to be able to get their claims paid, be able to pay their professionals, be able to move on and into their lives and their communities as quickly as possible and recover from the loss. But in cases where it doesn't, it's problematic because if the consumer's not getting paid, well, your contractor's not getting paid as well. I talk to a lot of people about, if you're having trouble with the insurance companies paying for the claims and paying for the work to get done, how much of your time do you spend fighting with insurance carriers, just trying to get, paid for the work that you've done? And there are some people who say significant. There are some people who have staff specifically dedicated to that. There are people who have departments specifically for that. And that is a tremendous loss of resources. Every minute you spend fighting with an insurer or one of their vendors to get paid is wasted time. That's a theft from the time that you could put back into your business, the time that you could be putting into your family, the time that you could be putting into your community, and it produces nothing. It's time, money, energy, and effort that produces nothing for the American economy. You're not making a widget, you're not fixing or building a property. So we consider that to be problematic. And if you're in the industry and you're having problems with your consumers getting paid by carriers, well, you're having a problem as well, and it's hurting you as well. And we do see people whose businesses, I had one gentleman living in his office with his newborn baby. He's like, I've got like $10 million out there that is owed to me by insurance carriers and is not coming in. And I'm about to pull the plug and go bankrupt. Those stories are heartbreaking. And we're not even talking about what happens to the consumers who don't get paid, the suffering they go through when they lose a home and they can't get back in the home, and all of the symptoms. We've done studies to track the symptoms that they go through and the issues with health issues, financial problems, with depression, anxiety, increased dependence on drugs and alcohol, students underperforming in school. There's a whole set of symptoms, suicidal tendencies that people go through because their home is destroyed, either in a natural disaster or a one-off fire or a flood. And they don't have the ability to resume their life and get back to normal. And they stay displaced like refugees for some cases for years, just because their insurance policy did not work the way that it was promised to them. And not only does that consumer have a problem, but the contractors have a problem. The communities are impacted adversely. It's a pretty significant problem. It's more than just dollars and cents.
Thanks for driving home that impact to our audience of contractors, of course, the policyholder, and to your point, the wider communities, and also how long-term these things can last. I'm curious about you, Doug, a little more about your focus as the executive director of the APA. And I know before we got on this interview, you talked a little bit, and you did earlier in this interview, about your experience with a hurricane I know you're based in the Jersey Shore area. So maybe a little bit about what led up to the creation of the APA, a little more elaboration there. But yeah, your focus today and how this all came to be.
I was an investment advisor for 30 years, living a comfortable life on the Jersey Shore, living on the water, very happy. And again, I had worked, my firm was owned by one of the country's largest insurance companies. I was a big believer in insurance. I still am. I have recommended tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of insurance to my financial planning clients. So I had bought the maximum legal amount of insurance on my home when I bought a home on the water. And when I got flooded in Superstorm Sandy and my home was destroyed, no big deal. That's why I buy insurance. I bought more than I needed to just to be safe. And my insurance company paid me 37 cents on the dollar. And they used one of these engineers to come in and create a report to say, hey, those were pre-existing damage. All of that, those giant cracks in your foundation and the hole underneath where the water undermined your foundation and flooded into your crawl space in your home was already there, except I had just bought my home and I had inspection reports and pictures to prove that none of that was there. So when we started looking, I said, oh, it happened to my neighbor too. Oh, it happened to my cousin who lives just north. It happened to this person. I started going to community meetings and town hall meetings, and we started hearing this over and over from people. Everybody was either getting denied or underpaid, and it was a huge problem. And I will tell you, we started working together with other people, with grassroots organizers, with our senator's office, with some plaintiffs' attorneys. We started working together with some people who were basically advocating for consumers. And we started hearing this all in this area from more and more. And a whole bunch of us worked together. And we were able to finally crack the case when we discovered what was going on. We kept saying, I went to congressional hearings. It was basically a scenario where, we all knew something was wrong. Something's going on here. And the carriers and even FEMA, who runs the National Flood Insurance Program, saying, no. Nothing's going on. This is what it is. You're all getting paid fairly. But we all knew. And when we were able to dig deep enough and uncover that there was massive criminal fraud going on to cheat people, it turned out that we were able to break the case open. So, for my situation, I mean, if you say I had $250,000 of insurance on my home, I remember going to find a rental. It was very difficult to find rentals because you had thousands of people out of their homes and very few rental properties. I lived out of my car with my teenage daughter for a month, couch surfing with friends. And I finally found a place and the landlord wanted a year lease. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have $250,000 of flood insurance. I'll be home in 6 months. So I made a deal with the gentleman to pay him $100 a month extra if he allowed me just to go month to month, because I was afraid of breaking a lease. I was afraid of having to not honor my commitment to the landlord. And I paid that gentleman $100 a month extra for 7 years.
Wow.
It took me 7 years to get back home. And a big chunk of it was because, we were defrauded by our flood insurance. So we see that all the time. I can look out, I'm in my office in my home right now, and I can look out over the water and I can see empty spaces where there's properties where people never got home. People lost, the American dream. They lost their home altogether. I have neighbors that, still have not gotten home. And we see that in natural disasters and individual losses all over. It's a devastating situation. So through that process, I met a bunch of people who were all focused on this issue and were all outraged that this is happening to people at the lowest time of their lives. People in the most vulnerable time. They've lost everything. They're living in a hotel room. Their kids are sleeping on somebody's couch. They've been traumatized because they've been through a loss, and they're getting taken advantage of by a very large and powerful industry, or participants in a very large and powerful industry. And the average American doesn't have the ability to stand up to them. The average American on their best day cannot stand up to a $1 billion insurance company who has, armies of adjusters and attorneys and engineers and claims managers, lobbyists. So the insurance industry is the second most powerful lobby in the United States. They spend just behind big pharma. That's a lot of political power. So how does the average American on their best day stand up to that? Much less after you've suffered a loss and people are traumatized. People are not functioning at full capacity. So they don't have a voice. And the insurance prosecution system in America is geared toward defending insurance companies. So it's not necessarily geared toward defending consumers. So the APA has sort of come in and, like I said, we started about 3 years ago. A whole bunch of us who were involved in Sandy and saw the problems still going on afterwards got together and we formed the American Policyholder Association specifically to stand up for consumers. And our members are professionals. Listen, I'll tell you, we have attorneys who could make a very nice living when insurance companies commit fraud. And they still side with us. And I always joke with them like, hey, if I do my job correctly, you're out of work. If the insurance fraud goes away, what do people need you for? None of them really seem to be that worried about it. They'll tell me, I'll make a living just fine. Don't worry about it. You do your job. You make sure consumers are treating fairly. So we have some of our members who are members of the APA and standing up for consumers. It's actually against their own best interest, but they know it's the right thing to do.
Very interesting. And thank you for sharing your own personal story. What a tale. And yeah, you're reporting live. Well, this won't be listened to live, but from where it all started and where this all took root.
Yeah, and I will tell you my personal experience. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I live in New Jersey. It's an area of the country that people fight for a hobby. You know what I mean? I mean, it just people tend to be, very good at advocating for themselves. I was a financial advisor for 30 years. I'm smarter than the average bear. And this situation broke me. I had days when I couldn't get out of bed. And I hear that from people all over. And what is it if you're just an average person, if you're not financially sophisticated? What if English is a second language? What if you're poor and you're just not trained to advocate for yourself? If you're elderly, if you have handicapped children, how do those people survive these situations? And it is brutal. It's brutal. We see it all over, these same symptoms that people are continuously running into. So what we do as the APA and our stakeholders and our members is we stand up for these people who can't stand up for themselves, who don't have a voice of their own. We all work together, and that's the idea. That's how America was founded. They saw injustice. They saw what wasn't fair. We were being treated poorly by a foreign power, and people got their muskets. They joined together with their neighbors, and they stood up against the most powerful army on the planet Earth and created a country called America. And that's in all of our DNA to do that, to stand up for people that can't stand up for themselves, to give voice to the voiceless, to be able to stand up to injustice and oppression. And our members are very patriotic like that. They understand how important this is. And this is what makes it all happen.
Very good. Okay, so we're recording this at the end of 2021. I'm curious if we could take a look back. What would you say the key challenges the APA faced this past year were?
Our challenge from day one has been that the insurance fraud prosecution system in America is geared toward defending insurance companies. As I say, do a Google search for insurance fraud arrest, and you will see lots of people in handcuffs and orange jumpsuits. You really won't see many people, if any, from the insurance industry. And the reason for that is every insurance company has an SIU, a special investigation unit. And those SIUs have access to claim information, privileged information that other people don't see. They select cases, they develop those cases, and then they walk them into prosecutors. Most prosecutors aren't out looking for insurance fraud. Those cases get walked into them. And in some cases, the insurance industry is funding public prosecution. And there's a good reason for that. They've sort of said, well, you want us to defend you against insurance fraud. you're going to have to take some of your profits and offset. It can't all just be taxpayer money. So it's a very fair reason why, but it creates this cozy relationship between prosecutors and insurance companies. And the question is, if insurance companies are finding the cases and developing the cases and walking them into prosecutors, where are consumers represented in that situation? Where are you, Valerie? Where are the people who are your members of your podcast? Where are they being defended from insurance fraud? And the answer is they're not. So the APA has looked at this incredibly unlevel playing field. I'll go one step further. In most states, insurance companies are statutorily immune for civil consequences if they arrest somebody and make a mistake. If they turn a fraud case over on a business owner and that business owner is arrested, and of course, they take the pictures and they publicize them and put them, put it out there, and that they're in handcuffs and they're in an orange jumpsuit, put those pictures out there, maybe ruin somebody's business, ruin their reputation. And if they're wrong, they have civil immunity. Like, you can't go back and sue them. You as a consumer do not have that. If you turn in an insurance company or an insurance company representative for fraud, they can come back and sue you. So again, it's a incredibly unbalanced. So we're coming into this system that has been geared for decades toward defending insurance companies and trying to say, you know what, we need to be fair and find a way that we can defend consumers. And of course, it's a very large, very well-developed, very old system. It's certainly not easy. So that's one of the bigger challenges, is one, getting the message out that fraud is committed on the carrier side as well. And two, it's your responsibility to do something about it, to defend these people from being defrauded.
Thanks, Doug. Very meaningful challenges. Flip side, brighter side. What accomplishes would you say you're most proud of in 2021?
2021 is, we had a lot. So we produced a lot of literature. And again, we're starting from scratch. So we're producing literature that's informing people on how to defend against insurer fraud, how to self-advocate in an insurance claim, and tips and tricks to do that, how to be able to, and all this is on our website. People can download it for free. We don't charge anything. How you can evaluate an engineer report, how you can basically defend yourself against fraud in a disaster zone, because natural disasters are wide open to fraud of all types on all sides. So we want to educate people on how to be proactive to defend themselves. We work a lot, as I said, with attorneys general. We were able to go to a very large industry conference and bring 3 attorneys general, a former attorney general, and the insurance commissioner of that state, and have what's called the justice panel, and have people ask them questions and talk about the importance of defending consumers. So that was a big thing for us for the year, because those AGs got to hear from restoration contractors, attorneys, public adjusters. They got to hear your voice for once, which is important. I was able to testify at several state legislatures. We don't necessarily get involved in legislation at this point. It's outside of our mission. However, if somebody comes to me and say, hey, here's a proposed bill that is anti-consumer, I will come testify against it on behalf of policyholders. If someone says, here's something that's pro-consumer, I will, if you make the case and show it to me where it is, I will absolutely come and testify. And certainly the APA carries a pretty big voice in state legislatures and in Washington, D.C. We've also created a Washington, D.C. political action committee called APFIC, American Policyholders for Fair Insurance Claims. We created a 501c3 nonprofit called APR, American Policyholder Resources. We can use that for education to be able to help people protect themselves and get the message out. So you'll be starting to see some TV and radio spots and billboards put on by the APR. We were able to develop what's called the Engineer Complaint Portal on our website. A lot of people don't understand that your engineers that are being sent out by the carrier have to answer to a state licensing board, and that state licensing board has an ethics committee. And while most engineers are honest, hardworking professionals, If their measurements are off by an inch, the building collapses and people die. They take that very seriously. But there's this small crew who are willing to tell an insurance carrier whatever they want to hear so they can get that next job, that next check. And those people need to be removed from the market so that honest, hardworking people who have no chance of competing with somebody who's willing to lie to tell the check writer what they want to hear, you need to remove them from the market. So we have completed a portal that ties all the state engineering departments together, and it's one-stop shopping. You have all the information on who that state's engineering board is. You can research the engineer, what their disciplinary record, if they're even licensed, and then you hit a button and it connects you to a complaint against that engineer's license right off the bat. And then so we created this giant portal that ties all this mishmash of different states that people had no idea how to tackle. It puts it all together for one-stop shopping. We also created something called AREP, the APA Engineer Report Evaluation Program, that enables somebody, even a layman, a layperson, to be able to take an engineering report, and it walks them through where to look where we've seen problems in the past. Things like cut and paste reports or using the different loss date so they could say the loss didn't happen. There's a whole bunch of things, and it just simply, it tells you, go look at this section, what do you see? Go look at that section, what do you see? Look for this, look for that. And it's an online program, and it just walks people through it in a very simple, matter-of-fact way. And if they find problems, it connects directly to that engineer's licensing board or connects directly to the APA SIU to evaluate for a criminal complaint. We were able to launch our Florida chapter. One of our Florida board advisors, a gentleman named Jason Berg, was able to spearhead that effort, and we launched APA's Florida chapter. And we launched our SIU. This is the first ever special investigation unit built to defend consumers. We have a national prosecution coordinator who's one of the top insurance fraud prosecutors in the United States. He has a team of investigators and law clerks that he works with, all long-term 20, 30-year professional insurance fraud investigators. We got the best of the best. They do a tremendous job, and we're able to launch that. And like I say, this is all new territory. It is the first SIU built to defend consumers that represent you. So we were ecstatic about that. And from that unit, we have referred our first 3 criminal referrals to 2 different states' prosecutors. So 2021 was a big year. There's a lot of stuff I can go on forever and ever and ever about what we've accomplished, but I think those are the highlights that I'm most proud of.
That is quite a list, from advocacy on the ground to resources being created very thoughtfully for the consumer. Wow, I'm impressed. Any other notable trends you want to speak to about 2021? Trends, themes, stuff that transpired that sticks out in your head before we transition and talk about what's ahead?
Yeah, listen, outside of COVID, there's nothing going on in 2021 that hasn't gone on for the years before and will continue to go on for the years coming. And we will continue to address it. And, every day we get stronger and bigger, and we stand up for consumers. And so that's the trend. The trend is the APA is the organization to go to defend people. And there are many other great organizations out there who defend consumers. So, we hope that people are engaging with at least one of them, if not several, and supporting them to be able to defend people who can't defend themselves.
Thank you. Okay, time to talk 2022. What are you looking to achieve in 2022 as the APA? Top objectives?
We have our brains run much quicker than our legs have the ability to keep up with them. I mean, we have some very innovative people. We've started this organization just focusing on the innovators and the industry leaders and consumer defense leaders. So we have some great ideas, but of course, we're a nonprofit. We operate on a shoestring budget. I don't like to waste money. We're very careful with our resources. And so we have a whole thing called the Directors Project Team that enables our members to be able to get more involved, because we do have people that have come on board and said, you know what, how do I get involved? I don't mind cutting you a check to support, but I want to actually be in the trenches. So we've developed this program called the Directors Project Team that breaks into political initiatives, law enforcement and regulatory initiatives, education, mission infrastructure, and all of these different things. So we have this whole thing that enables our members to be able to get involved and plug in. So one of the big things we have going on is there's an attorney general election cycle coming up where a good chunk of the AGs in the United States are up for election in 2022. That's a great time to talk to an elected official. Their ears are wide open when they're running for office. And not to say they don't listen the rest of the time. I know some people are cynical, but we meet with them off cycle as well, but during the cycle. So we have some of our members, tracking the election cycle, getting involved, setting meetings. We just came back from the National Association of Attorney Generals conference in Washington. We met with a whole bunch of attorneys general and engaged with them. We have a couple of things we're doing, like we're building. We are going to start getting involved in some legislation. One of the things in some of the injustice I spoke about, where insurance carriers are immune from civil consequences for referrals, for criminal referrals, consumers are not. We're going to start addressing that. We're going to start dealing with state legislatures and saying, you know what, you have to make sure consumers are not intimidated that if they refer a criminal case because they've been cheated, $1 billion insurance company is not going to have 50 lawyers come down on them and sue them. That's intimidating for people. So we're going to start addressing some of that. We are expanding our case evaluation for our SIU. Sort of a no case left behind, because we do have people send us cases. And if you're a consumer and you've been cheated, to you, it doesn't matter whether it was a civil tort or it was criminal fraud or a licensing violation. The label doesn't matter to you. Your life was ruined. And so you don't really care why. So some of the things we want to do is, expand beyond just criminal fraud and license violations. If our SIU team evaluates it and says it does not meet the standard, or we don't have the proof to be able to bring it to a prosecutor, because we have to be very careful with our reputation. One of the promises we make to prosecutors are, we won't bring you a garbage case. So our reputation stands on every single case. Prosecutors have very limited budgets and time and resources and staff, and we won't waste your time unless we have vetted something very carefully. So, however, because it doesn't meet the standard of criminal fraud or can't be proven to meet that standard, doesn't mean something wrong wasn't done. So we will now be processing these as cases that go directly to the insurance commissioners as well, go directly to the engineering boards as well, because we want to make sure that anytime there's an injustice, it gets addressed by legal, law enforcement, or regulatory authorities. So that case evaluation expansion is a big one. We're producing something called the Whistleblowers Program. We know there are a lot of people on the insurance industry side who are getting pressured to do things they don't want to do. I hear from them. We have a lot of people who have jumped to the consumer side because they couldn't live with themselves anymore. So there's a lot of people who are working for insurance companies that are having a crisis of conscience. They don't like being forced to cheat people, but they've got mortgages to pay. They've got tuition. Their kids are in college. Not everybody can, make a stand and do what I did and said, I'm turning my life upside down and I'm going to stand against this. And we understand that, but we do want to create a venue where these people can talk about it anonymously, can vent. And some of those people will in turn become legitimate whistleblowers if we show them the legal protections that you have for doing so. There are very strong whistleblower protection laws in the United States. Not everybody knows it. And again, many people are afraid of going against a powerful industry, but their heart tells them this is the right thing to do. So we're creating a program that is going to allow them to do that in a safe, anonymous environment. We're also building a civil case archive for attorneys, and above and beyond that, we did it prior to COVID, and we would hope that the situation resolves itself. We want to do a big annual membership summit where all our members from all over the country come together The last one that we did was just pre-COVID, and it was amazing. There was a great synergy for people to be able to join together, network, meet other professionals, talk about how to advance the mission, because we do have so many brilliant thought leaders and industry leaders involved. And when you put them all together in one conference center, it's amazing what comes out of that. So those are some of the things that we're looking to do. And more than anything, we're going to expand our cases. The APA will be out there investigating criminal complaints, and we will be referring them to prosecutors where appropriate. So that is our main number one mission, and I would like to see that increase by at least 5x during 2022.
Wow, once again, that is a comprehensive set of initiatives, starting with your main focus, but really amazing stuff extending beyond that, including for, like you just talked about, whistleblowers. So I'm excited to see what comes this year, and it'll be fun to hopefully do this again, maybe touch base again during the year, but then again later and see what's happened in 2022. My goodness. All right, so
Sure.
I'd love to ask specific to the restoration industry. I know I learned of the APA at the Experience Conference in September of 2021 in Las Vegas, and I know you presented there. So obviously, and it makes perfect sense, you've spoken to this, there is a shared interest between what the APA is doing and your restoration contractors across the nation. So I'm curious what your hopes are for that relationship between the APA and the restoration industry.
We're really looking to expand into, we focused a lot on a lot of storm work. And then we started having people come and individual losses. And then we started having people come to us say, you know what, there's fire and water restoration. There's tremendous needs there. So that's a newer area for us to expand into. So we would like to get more involved. I think, for restoration professionals, like I say, if you're seeing your consumers having a good experience with insurance, that's good. And I believe a lot of people have a good experience, but you understand with the scale, if it's 5% of people getting cheated, that's millions of people. That's a huge amount of suffering. So we certainly know there's a percentage of that goes on within the restoration industry. So there are people who are seeing their consumers not getting a fair shake from the insurance industry. So we want to be able to work more closely with people that are fire and water restoration, because it is our members who are the boots on the ground. Our members are the ones who are in the trenches, who can turn cases over to us because they're there every day. I am not involved in the industry. You cannot be an executive or on the board of directors of the APA if you're involved in the claims business or the industry in any way, shape, or form. There can be no conflict of interest. We don't do referrals. All the things we've seen other organizations suffer from, we made sure we excluded that from the very beginning. So you cannot be an executive in the APA. You can't be on the board of directors if you're involved in the insurance claims business, the restoration industry, et cetera, in any way, shape, or form. So there's no conflict of interest. There's no profit motive. It's just got to be pure, here to help people. The catch with that is I don't really know what's going on the ground, as well as somebody who works in this field every single day. And they're the ones that bring us the information, that bring us the cases. They're the ones that, in some cases, they'll educate me like something I think is going on that's wrong. They'll be like, nope, that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing. I've had people come and defend the insurance industry and been perfectly correct in doing so, and has sort of helped us to evolve and move along. So, we need that connection to the boots on the ground, to the professionals.
Awesome. You listed so many resources you've created this past year and the past 3 years in general. Are there any that stick out that restoration professionals might want to leverage to help their businesses? But then also, the second part of that question would be to help their policyholder clients?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the truth, I'll reverse it. The first part of
Perfect.
that question should be, and because I have this all the time, I will have people who come to me and say, well, how does it help me to join the APA? And my first answer is, well, that's the wrong question, because we're here to defend consumers. And yes, there are things that will help you as a professional. but that shouldn't be your first motivation, and when sometimes I'll just say to people, what if I told you nothing? What if I said there's nothing in it for you? It's just a way you can stand up and defend Americans who are suffering, who can't defend themselves. It's a way for you to give back. It's not the only way. You can give to your church, you can give to your community center, you can do volunteer. There are many ways to give back. And I'll tell you what, America is a great place. You can get wealthy, you can do it in an honest, ethical manner, and you can have a little bit to give back to people who aren't as fortunate as you. And if you can do those three things, then yes, you're successful. If you can cut corners, then maybe not so much. So when I ask people that question, what if I said nothing? It's a rhetorical question, and most people will say, you know what, I'm still in. And I love that. So I'm sort of in this position, like, the main focus should be what's in the best interest of consumers, the average American, and the people that put food on your table, to be fair, right? Your customers. These are the people that, are supporting your family. And if they're being taken advantage of, can you give a little extra back to help? And of course, most people who are honest, ethical professionals will say 100%. Now, there are benefits for the average person. I mean, you get to set yourself apart as somebody who's against fraud. People wear the shirts and they have the logo on their truck, or they'll wear their hats to inspections. And, it's sort of, they'll tell their consumers, they'll give our literature to their consumers, their potential customers, and say, look, I'm not just here to make money. I also give back to an organization that stands up for you. And it distinguishes your company as somebody who's defending consumers, not just about making money. You can be part of a nationwide effort to fight injustice. That's important for many people. Again, you display the APA logo, you can see it here on my shoulder, on my shirt. You can show people this is, who I am and what I'm about. You have full access. There's an APA member portal. There's an APA member directory for, we don't do referrals, but we do encourage our members to network with each other, to share ideas, to do business with each other. And you get a chance to network and interact with some of the most powerful leaders in the industry, some of the top. And we started this organization. We didn't just run out and say, let's sign up 1 million people. We started it very small and very focused with the people that we saw who were innovators. Innovators will stand up when they see something. Those are people who say, here's a problem. Let's create something that's going to fix that problem. Statistically, about 2.3% of the population are innovators. And then we also brought in what's called the alpha consumers, the early joiners, the people who are like, they see something, they don't necessarily say, where is it? What's it? What is it going to do now? They look and they can see the potential. What could this be? And they jump in to help make it become that. That's a critical group of people. So you get to network with people like that, which is great. We'll obviously have the APA membership summit, and you actually get to be on a team of people that have actually put somebody from the insurance side in jail. Almost nobody can say that. You get to be on a team, and again, we're not necessarily looking to put people in jail. It's not, but it's a deterrent. That is when you're dealing with criminology and law enforcement, people who say, if I forge this report, if I'm claims manager, or if I'm an adjuster, or I'm a third-party administrator, and I create a fraudulent report and cheat an American family out of their home, and they sue us, my company has lawyers, I'm protected, I'm anonymous behind the corporate veil, big deal. That's why my company has attorneys. That's not a deterrent. When the calculation becomes, if I cheat an American family out of an honest claim and potentially out of their home, I can get walked out of here in handcuffs tomorrow. That's a deterrent. And that's all we're looking for. We're looking for consumers to get a fair shake. We're looking for people who are the fraudsters in the industry to be eliminated so honest, hardworking Americans can fill those jobs. And then other honest, hardworking Americans can get fair insurance claims paid. So you can be part of that process. So it's a lot. There's a lot that's in your advantage. But if that's the first question somebody comes to me with, I generally think maybe I'm talking to the wrong person, versus what can I do to help? How can I make a positive impact on the market and in my community? How can I give back to the people who put food on my table, my customers? That's the driving mission. And all the other stuff, it's gravy. yeah, you get something out of being APA membership. There's quite a few benefits, but we lead with what can we do for others, not what can be done for me.
Love that. So the restorers who are interested in contributing, giving back, getting involved with the APA, what are the key ways? Is the main opportunity membership and sharing your existence and mission with their policyholder clients? Is there more to it than that?
Best way is jump on the team. Go to our website, apassociation.org, go to membership. There's several membership options. You can just be a professional member and a contributor, or you could be you can apply. You could be a company membership where you say everyone in your company gets to say, I represent an APA member company. You can apply. You have to be approved by the board of directors to be a board advisor, somebody who's more on the inside and advising the leadership of the organization. You can just search us on Facebook and on social media, Instagram, and see what we've been doing, what we've been up to. That's probably one of the best. Our website is great, apassociation.org, but what we put sort of our weekly activities or daily activities up on social media, let people know what we're doing. So go to the website, go to the social media, see what we're about, and come join the team and be a part of.
Awesome. This has been so informative. That said, is there anything we haven't touched on yet before we go that you wanted to highlight?
Oh, there's lots of things we haven't touched on, but I think we got the highlights and people got the gist of it. Listen, give back in some way. It doesn't have to be the APA. Find another way. We're all very fortunate here in America. We live in the greatest country, but there are some people who are not having the best possible experience. Find a way to give back and find a way to make a positive impact in your community. The APA is one of them. We're not the only one, but certainly we're one way that the people in this industry can bring their knowledge and their expertise and their success to bear to make a positive impact in their community.
All right. Thanks again, Doug, for your time and insight. This has been awesome. You just said it, but let's make sure it's super clear. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you and connect with the APA?
Go to our website, apassociation.org. That's Alpha Papa, the word association.org, or you can just search us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, search the American Policyholder Association. Will come up and that'll spin you through what we're doing and what we're about.
Good stuff. Thanks again.
Thank you, Valerie.
Of course. All right, listeners and viewers, for more insights on restoration, remediation, and the people behind it all, visit our website, randrmagonline.com, also Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. If you haven't yet, please be sure to follow the podcast, and that is how you'll keep up with all of our latest episodes. If you could give us a quick review and rating, we'd so appreciate it. And then we're also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, so we invite you to follow us there too. This has been R&R's Ask the Expert. Thanks for listening.